Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video today. And the New York Jets beat the Washington Commanders 20-17. Even though the Commanders starters did play in this game, the New York Jets starters did not. The Jets had their backup players going out there today. Also, they had Tyrod Taylor starting at quarterback, which, I honestly think is pretty exciting for the New York Jets. I mean, it has to be exciting to have a quarterback like Tyrod Taylor backing up Aaron Rodgers just in case. I don't want to disrespect Zach Wilson because I hope the best for him in Denver, even though I believe he will only be the quarterback 3 in Denver. But I think if Aaron Rodgers were to go down, which obviously I don't think anybody is going to wish for Aaron Rodgers to get injured unless you're, really messed up in the head. But no one's wishing for Aaron Rodgers to go down. But when someone has just torn their Achilles and is at that age of 40, almost 40 years old, like Aaron Rodgers is, that there is a potential chance of, getting injured again. And, tearing your Achilles is one of the worst injuries in all sports, basketball, football. So it's going to be tough for Rodgers to come back from that. I think with them improving the offensive line and them getting him some new weapons, or adding in some new weapons, will be good for Rodgers. But God forbid Rodgers goes down again. I think you've added in a better quarterback in Tyrod Taylor. I'd much rather have Tyrod Taylor than Zach Wilson. You want to look at what Tyrod Taylor did last year with the New York Giants. He was pretty solid with the Giants in a couple of starts he got. He started in like 2 or 3 games with the Giants last year. And if you want to compare the Giants to the Jets, Tyrod Taylor looks pretty good with the Giants. Yes, he throws a couple interceptions, but if he looks good with the Giants, looks solid with the Giants, does some good things that makes you say, okay, this is not bad with a bad team. Imagine with the Jets. Imagine him having Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams and Breece Hall as an offense, and not just Saquon Barkley and a solid defense. If I look at the Jets and compare them with the Giants, both the Jets and the Giants have good defenses, but the Jets have a better defense. And also the wide receiver core, Tyrod Taylor, if he were have to start for this New York Jets team, way better wide receiver core with Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams and Allen Lazard compared to last season Giants wide receiver core. And I think Saquon Barkley last year compared to Breece Hall this year, they're pretty even, but you compare all the other things, this Jets team is way better than the Giants were. So I don't know if Rodgers were to get hurt, what it would be like for this Jets team with Tyrod Taylor. But I can tell you this. I can tell you guys this. If the Jets can go 7-10 with Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, and Trevor Siemian on their roster as the quarterbacks throughout the season, and having some other injuries elsewhere, they would be better this year with adding in Mike Williams, adding in Hassan Reddick, adding in other pieces to the offense to help Aaron Rodgers out. So this is a better roster. And then if you improve the quarterback position with number 1 Aaron Rodgers, and potentially, look, Tyrod Taylor is way better than what they had last year, is what I'm trying to say. Tyrod Taylor is way better than Tim Boyle, who's on my favorite team right now with the Houston Texans, Trevor Siemian, or Zach Wilson. So compare Aaron Rodgers to those guys. The Jets are going to be a good team, but it's all about health. Can this team stay healthy? And I honestly, to be fully honest with everybody, I think Rodgers stays healthy, but even if he doesn't and Tyrod Taylor has to step up, I still think this Jets team could be a good team. If you can go 7-10 with Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian and Tim Boyle, you're down to be better with Tyrod Taylor, and especially with adding in other pieces to improve the team outside of there. So yeah, I think this Jets team should be a good team this year if Rodgers stays healthy or not. But I think there's some other, players on this team that need to stay healthy outside of Rodgers. But, they did their bench group did a solid job in this game, beat a Commanders team who, were playing their starters. And I want to get into the Commanders because Jayden Daniels looked really good. He only played 1 drive. He threw about 50 passing yards, something like that. But he still looked really good. He had his own rushing touchdown on his first drive. And that's where I'll get started with things. Scoring summary: 2017 is the final score. Jayden Daniels would have the first score in the first quarter with a 3-yard touchdown run. Ahmed would have the extra point at 7-0. Then Andrew Peasley had a 12-yard touchdown pass to Jason Brownlee at 7-7. Then a Ramaz Ahmed 40-yard field goal is 10-7. Greg Zuerlein going into halftime knocks in a 56-yard field goal. Good to see Greg Zuerlein in beginning season form with his first kick of preseason, 10-10. Someone else had a similar start to that. That was like that in yesterday's preseason game for the Miami Dolphins. Jason Sanders had a 58-yard field goal in his first field goal kick. So both Greg Zuerlein and Jason Sanders kicking it from deep to start off preseason, but that made it 10-10. No scores in the third quarter, but then in the fourth quarter, a Michael Wiley 1-yard touchdown run to give Washington the 17-10 lead. But we were not. The Jets were not done. Israel Abakanda 2-yard touchdown run to tie the game up at 17. And then Austin Seibert, who is their backup kicker, they did not keep Greg Zuerlein in this game. The backup kicker nails a 37-yard field goal to make it 20-17. All right, game leaders. Jeff Driscoll was 7 for 15, 87 passing yards to lead Washington. And then we saw Martinez, the quarterback from Kansas State, who looked really good in this game. He probably looked better than anything Zach Wilson did. That might be a stretch, but he was even running the ball as well. Threw 6 for 10, 104 passing yards. All right, rushing yards. How about Michael Wiley, who had a touchdown, 8 carries with 34 rushing yards with 1 touchdown for the Jets. Allen had 6 carries for 54 rushing yards. Then receiving yards. For the Commanders, Ben Sinnott had 3 receptions for 57 receiving yards. For the Jets, Smith had 2 receptions for 70 receiving yards. Let's go over some other stats in this game. I really like the QB competition for the Washington Commanders. And I'm not talking about a QB competition for the QB1, because Jayden Daniels is obviously the starting quarterback. Marcus Mariota, I think, is obviously the backup quarterback. And he played 1 drive as well, through 1 for 1 with 6 passing yards. Kind of weird how they only played their backup for 1 drive, but the reason I believe that was just because the fact that they have a very serious QB3 battle going on. Ever since the San Francisco 49ers NFC Championship game, where Brock Purdy gets injured and we see the 49ers in a bad quarterback situation, having Christian McCaffrey playing wildcat and an injured Brock Purdy out there handing the ball off. In that NFC Championship game, the NFL has changed the rules where there can be 3 quarterbacks on the active roster, which now, most of the time, you now see NFL teams have 3 quarterbacks on their roster. So 3 quarterbacks are going to make the roster. Of course, Jayden Daniels and Marcus Mariota will, but who's the third guy that makes it? And the 2 other guys are playing great, and that one of those guys is undrafted free agent Sam Hartman from Notre Dame, who in this game threw 8 for 13 with 83 passing yards. He also had 15 rushing yards. And then you have Jeff Driscoll, who played for my Texans, who I really like, threw 7 for 15 with 87 passing yards. And he ran for 23 rushing yards on 3 carries. So, both guys played good. So that should be an interesting QB3 battle right there in Washington. For the Jets, Adrian Martinez did throw 104 passing yards. He ran for 24 rushing yards. Andrew Peasley threw for 73 passing yards and 1 touchdown. And he did not run for any yards. And then Tyrod Taylor threw 2 passes, but only was out there for 1 possession, through -1 passing yards, which, look, he wasn't out there for long. We'll see Tyrod Taylor longer, and, he's going to get some extra playing time with Aaron Rodgers not playing in the preseason. So, All right, rushing yards outside of Michael Wiley for the Commanders. Jeff Driscoll, I mentioned. How about starter Brian Robinson Jr., 5 carries, 20 rushing yards. Mentioned Sam Hartman. Austin Jones had 2 carries for 13 rushing yards. Austin Eckler looked pretty solid. He had 2 carries for 7 rushing yards. Jayden Daniels, his 3-yard touchdown run was the only time he ran the ball in this game. And then for the Jets, outside of Braylon Allen was 54 rushing yards. Adrian Martinez ran for 24 yards. Israel Abakanda had 6 carries for 17 rushing yards with 1 touchdown. Xavier Valade had 8 carries for 11 rushing yards, and that was really it for rushing. Receiving, Ben Sinnott had 3 receptions for 57 receiving yards. Diami Brown had a big reception that was thrown by Jayden Daniels. He had 2 receptions for 55 receiving yards with a 42-yard reception thrown by Jayden Daniels. Luke McCaffrey, brother of Christian McCaffrey, had 2 receptions for 25 receiving yards. Jahan Dotson had 2 receptions for 13 receiving yards. And anybody else, Austin Eckler had 1 target in this game, but did not make a reception. Terry McLaurin had 1 reception for 3 receiving yards. That was really it for the Jets. Outside of Brandon Smith with 2 receptions for 70 receiving yards, Isaiah Davis had 4 receptions for 33 receiving yards. That was really it for receiving. Only fumble in this game was Adrian Martinez, quarterback fumbling, but he recovered his own fumble. Tackles, Percy Butler led the Commanders in tackles with 5. They had a total of 1 sack, which was Benning Potoa, or Poti, and then they had 5 tackles for loss. The Jets only had 1 sack as well. That sack went to Leonard Taylor III, who also had 2 tackles for loss. The team had 7 tackles for loss. No interceptions in this game. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. That's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out.